Welcome back for chapter 35 of Maniac Magee. So he's with John McNabb right now. And John McNabb said, "What are you doing with my little brothers?" It took a while for everything to get straightened out. First, Giant John had to be convinced that Maniac was not kidnapping his brothers. Then the brothers had to do some more trembling and clinging while John finished lambasting them for running away, which apparently they did about every other week. Then when the brothers found out that their pizza person was none other than the famous Maniac Magee, the very same one who had blasted their big brother's fastballs to smithereens and finished him off with a home run frog. Well, it took a good 5 minutes of rolling on the sidewalk to get all the laughing out of their systems, which of course got Giant John more than a little steamed. Prompting Maniac, who didn't like to see John disgraced before his little brothers, to say, "Yeah, but didn't John tell you what happened the next day?" And the brother said, "No, what?" And Giant John said, "Huh?" And Maniac winked at John and crossed his fingers. "Sure, John, you remember, wink, wink, at the Little League field the next day. You said I was lucky that you threw me all the only fastballs because you weren't ready to reveal your secret pitch, the one you've been working on. Remember?" Wink. John McNabb just nodded dumbly. "And so then I said, well, come on, I can hit anything. Pitch it to me. And remember, John, you pitched it and I missed it by a mile. And you kept pitching it to me all day long. And I never even hit a foul ball on it." "What was the pitch? What was the pitch?" chanted the little urchins. "It was," Maniac paused for dramatic buildup, "the stop ball." "The stop ball?" "Yeah. Oh, and you should have seen it. It comes right up to the plate, looking all fat and easy to belt. And then just when you take your swing," Maniac got into his batter stance and demonstrated, "it sort of stops and your bat just whiffs the air." He whiffed at an imaginary stop ball. "Wow," said the brothers, gazing up at their big brother. How about that? Maniac could have just enjoyed them laughing at John after how nasty John was to him. Maniac thought he didn't like to see John, what do you say, disgraced in front of his little brothers. So we keep seeing what a good person Maniac is. I was pretty impressed with that. And so Maniac was invited to accompany the brothers McNabb to their home. Let's see, what do we think their house is going to be like? We saw how lovely the Beals' house was, that Mrs. Beal was always cleaning and baking, and Mr. Beal even put a partition in the little kids' room so Amanda could have it and Maniac could have his own room. It was just a lovely house. Now let's compare that to the McNabbs. If we were in school and making a compare and contrast between the Beals and the McNabbs, think about that. It's going to jump out at you, that's for sure, the big difference between the Beals and the McNabbs' home. Despite the cold, the front door was wide open, and Maniac could smell the inside before he could see it. The first thing he did see was a yellow, short-haired mutt looking innocently up at him while taking a leak in the middle of the living room floor. "Clean that up," John ordered Russell. "Clean that up," Russell ordered Piper, and Piper just walked on by. Ew. After closing the front door, which was surprisingly heavy, Maniac found a stack of newspapers in the corner, so he laid some over the puddle to soak it in, and then he gave himself a tour of the downstairs. Maniac had seen some amazing things in his lifetime, but nothing as amazing as that house. From the smell of it, he knew that was not the first time an animal had relieved itself on their rugless floor. In fact, in another corner, he spotted another form of animal droppings that could not be covered up with newspapers. Ew. Cans and bottles laid all over, along with crusts, peelings, cores, scraps, wrappers, everything you would normally find in a garbage can. And everywhere there were raisins. Seems odd, doesn't it? As he walked through the dining room, something, an old tennis ball, hit him right on the top of the head and bounced away. He looked up into the two laughing faces of Russell and Piper. The hole in the ceiling was so big they could have both jumped through it at once. He ran a hand along one wall. The peeling paint came off like cornflakes. Nothing could be worse than the living room and the dining room, yet the kitchen was. A jar of peanut butter had crashed to the floor, and then someone had gotten a running start, jumped into it, and skied a brown one-footed track to the stove. On the table were what appeared to be the remains of an autopsy performed on a large bird, possibly a crow. The refrigerator had two food groups, mustard and beer. The raisins here were even more abundant. It seems odd, right? Okay, the authors mentioned those raisins twice. We should be thinking now about that. Then he spotted several of them moving. They weren't raisins. They were roaches. The front door opened, and seconds later, a man clomped into the kitchen. He wore no winter jacket, only a sleeveless green sweatshirt, which ballooned over his enormous stomach. Tattoos blued his upper arms. His hands were nearly pure black. Stale body odor mixed with that of French fries and burgers coming from the Burger King bag he held. Dropping the bag right on the table next to the bird remains, he bellowed, "Chow!" and he took a beer from the fridge. He downed a good half of it in one swig, belched, double-clutched, and belched again. He had to know someone besides himself was standing in the kitchen with him, and just as obviously, he didn't care. Two floor-quaking crashes came from the dining room. "Geronimo! Geronimo!" Russell and Piper had taken the direct route via the hole in the ceiling. And just as excuse me. "What'd you bring us, Dad? What'd you bring us? Whoppers?" "Yeah, Whoppers, all right." They tore into the bag like jackals into carrion. Plastic flew, French fries through. They both wanted the same Whopper. Mashed between their tugging fists, the Whopper splurted sauce and cheese and pickle chips, and then it split. Russell lurched backward into the kitchen with his half. Piper lurched backward in the opposite direction, and with nothing to stop him, sailed right through the cellar doorway and down the cellar steps. The final thud was followed by the truck horn blast of Piper's laughter. When Giant John ambled in, the father said, "Did you get them blocks?" "No," grunted John, pulling a pair of Whoppers, and he tossed one to Maniac. "We need more blocks," growled his father. John didn't answer. "We need more." "I heard." McNabb smashed the tabletop. 3 fries and a bird wing jumped to the floor. "Now!" John just walked out, nonchalantly munching. "I was busy." The rest of the night was like scenes from a loony movie. Scene. McNabb, the father, swaggers bare-armed out the front door, bellowing back, "Do your homework." Scene. Maniac retrieves the wet newspapers from the living room. There are no wastebaskets in the house, so he finds a trash can in the backyard next to a pile of cinder blocks, and he dumps the soggy papers in the can, which is empty. Okay, well, like we keep saying, when an author mentions things more than once, there's probably a reason. The dad was yelling, "We need more blocks." Now we go outside and we see there's a pile of cinder blocks. You know what those are? Those are those big rectangular shaped gray blocks that you'll see in foundations of houses. So what's the deal with the cinder blocks, I wonder? The next scene. Small turds of an unfamiliar shape appear here and there along the baseboards of the first floor. "Oh, please don't be rats," Maniac prays. Next scene. The cobras come in. They glare at Maniac, but Giant John tells them lay off. So they raid the fridge for beer. They smoke cigarettes. They belch and fart. They curse. Russell and Piper, kitty cobras, they pop their own beer cans, guzzle, belch, smoke, and curse. Can you imagine that? Think about this house. These kids are like 8 years old, and McNabb's only, didn't it say he was 12? Because he still played Little League. Can you imagine that? Another scene. Football game. From the front of the living room to the back of the dining room. Except for space, it had everything a regular game has. Running, passing, blocking, tackling, kicking. There was little furniture to get in the way. Ordinarily, the windows wouldn't last 5 minutes in a game like this, but the windows of this house are boarded up with plywood. Body-blocked cobras fly into the walls. The house flinches. Scene. The boys' bedroom. Russell and Piper lie at the hole. They fire toy machine guns at the cobras that are heading out the front door. Piper jumps up and pretends to blow Maniac away, killing him at least 15 times. This is how we're going to do it. Bam, 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 he yells. Yeah, but the guns will be real, says Russell, still lying there with the toy gun against his cheek. Yeah, squawks Piper, real guns. He flops back to the floor and sprays the whole downstairs with his pretend gun. Bam, 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 bam. Soon as they start coming, bam, bam, bam. Who? Says Maniac. The enemy, said Russell. Well, who's that? Asked Maniac. Any ideas, guys? Russell stops firing long enough to send Maniac a "Where have you been?" look. Who do you think? He sneers. He points the red barrel of his toy submachine gun toward the bedroom door, toward the east end. Now it made sense to Maniac. The heavy front door, the cinder blocks, the boarded up windows. So they apparently think the enemy is the East End. Now, we've talked earlier in this book about how the East and West stayed separate and didn't like each other. The blacks and the whites didn't like each other. But we also saw how the Beals, the black family just welcomed Maniac. Now, he definitely had his issues when he stayed in the East End. There was the old man that told him to go back with his own kind. And there were the people that wrote Fish Belly Go Home on the Beals' house and tore up Amanda's encyclopedia. But we didn't see, I don't think, hatred like this, like we're seeing at the Beals' house. At the McNabb's house. This is kind of scary. Then the next scene, darkness and silence. Sometime early morning, Maniac's lying between the two brothers on the bed. Do cockroaches climb bedposts, he wondered. Unable to sleep, asking himself, what am I doing here? Remembering Hester and Lester on his lap, Grayson's hug, corn muffin in the toaster oven, thinking, who's the orphan here anyway? I love that line. Who's the orphan here anyway? What does that mean? I mean, clearly we know Maniac's the orphan. He's the one with no parents. The Russell and Piper, they have a family, they have a dad. But when Maniac's thinking about all the people that he had that loved him, like his parents and Grayson and the Beals, and now looking at the life that Russell and Piper have, I think that's what he means when he's saying, who's the orphan here anyway? Hearing at last, as he lowers himself into sleep's deep waters, a door slam again and a slurred voice say, do your homework. And now he's fearing, will I float? Maniac's wondering if he's going to survive now at this point. So he found somewhere to stay, but I don't know. I don't think this is anything like any of the other homes we've ever heard that Maniac's been in. So I don't know. They certainly seem like they're very different than him, even though there's boys that are his age. I don't know. I don't have a good feeling about this house for Maniacs. Pretty disgusting too, right? Okay, we will pick back up with chapter 36 next and see how Maniac's doing at the McNabb house. See ya.